Good stuff. So hi, everybody. I'm Callum, Head of Managed Services here at GHM Communications. Thank you for joining us all this morning to discuss the phishing threats posed to SMEs in 2023. I'm joined today by Nicola Sloan, who's the UK Partnerships Manager at Friendly Phishing, who are our trusted partner at GHM for delivering phish threat security. So in terms of what we'll be covering this morning, we'll start with what is phishing, explaining to you exactly what phishing is, the consequences of being reeled in by a phishing email, different types of phishing attacks. Sadly, there are many different types of phishing attacks, and we'll share with you what they look like. We'll share with you, examples of those different types of phishing emails, and finally, how to turn the tide. We'll also have time at the end of the webinar for some Q&A, and I'd like to ask if any of you have any questions throughout the webinar, then to please pop them into the Q&A section, and we'll do our absolute best to answer them all up at the end. We'll also be emailing you with a really useful ebook after the webinar that contains loads of other great tips that you can share with your team. So with that, I'll pass you over now to Nicola, but I'll join you towards the end of the webinar again to cover off the Q&A section. Enjoy.
Thanks, Callum, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. As discussed there, we're going to be covering everything phishing today, and my aim is for you to come away from this call with a deeper understanding of how to recognise a phishing email, the dangers they pose, and how to improve awareness in your organisations to reduce the risk presented by these types of attacks. And before we go into much more detail, I just want to address a really big question that most employees and organisations actually have when we're speaking about phishing awareness. Okay, and that question is about security infrastructure. And so people often say to us, well, look, when I go to work, why doesn't my company have technology in place to stop attacks from landing in my inbox? Don't they stop all that from happening? And the short answer to that question is, well, no, there is no silver bullet to stop phishing emails from getting through. So your organisation or your technology provider will be offering layers of protection through security. But we still know that with even the best technology, an average of 15% of phishing emails will still penetrate even the best defences. So today we'll look at the human element, and we'll look at what to do when phishing emails bypass technology. So what is phishing? Okay, well, essentially, cyber criminals are just really good actors. Okay, so generally they're posing as somebody that either you know and trust or a recognised brand, and they're going to try to persuade you to do one of the following three things. So they're either going to be looking for you to click on a link, open an attachment, or enter your credentials. So that could be a password, user information, or bank details in some cases as well. Quite often these attackers will rely on something that we call spoofing. So spoofing would mean that they've set up a website with a very, very similar domain from the website or the email that they're looking to impersonate. So when you check the email address, it's going to look like it's come from somebody that you know or that you trust. Okay. So looking at the dangers of interacting with these types of emails, well, the first thing is data loss. If a cyber criminal is able to access your network, they can take your customer information, employee information, and that could be financials, could be credit card information there that you hold. As a result of that, you can suffer financial loss and ultimately reputational damage, because if you're working with an organisation and you know that they have a leak of information about your personal data, then that's likely going to affect your confidence in that organisation. So the reputational damage can be huge. And the final thing, of course, as well, is a data breach resulting in a fine. And I just want to touch a little bit more on data breaches and how they occur. So a data breach is where a company discloses or gives a third party access to its customers or its employees' personal data. And even if it's an accident that they've shared that information, it's still classed as a data breach. So not only can a data breach result in reputational loss, but it also can result in a loss of profits and also a fine. So when a data breach happens, the government has a body called the ICO, who they will send in to investigate the company. And if the company's found to be negligent, they could be fined up to 4% of their annual turnover. So looking at the amount of money these types of attacks cost, so that we know in general £2 billion was lost in the UK last year from phishing scams. And there were actually 6.4 million phishing scams reported last year as well. And they're on the rise all the time, year on year. Going back to data breaches, which we've just discussed, 88% of data breaches actually start with human error. So that human error is often interacting with a phishing email. So if we can break that cycle and educate people on how to recognise these types of attacks, then we can reduce that number of data breaches that happen. So looking at phishing in the news, you all will have seen phishing attacks reported in the news over recent months and years. And I think the most recent one that's quite high profile is with Royal Mail. So we know that recently Royal Mail suffered what we call a ransomware attack, which was linked to Russia. And that meant that they were unable to send any international parcels or letters. So that will have cost the Royal Mail a significant amount of money, but also caused Joe Public quite a lot of inconvenience as well. So that's one that's been in the news. JD Sports is another one. So they're currently under investigation by that government body, the ICO, looking into whether there's been a data breach, because data relating to millions of their customers has been accessed over recent months and years. So that's another one. Going back a little bit further in time, we've got other high profile cases like the Marriott International, Tesco's Bank, and the most famous one that's been in the news over recent years being British Airways. So we know that hackers were able to access credit card details for thousands of British Airways customers, and they were investigated by the ICO, and they were unfortunately fined £183 million. But cyber criminals are non-discriminatory. So they're not just going to go for these big names and these big organisations. They're going to go for any company that they think that they can take data from or they can make financial profit from. And so let's look for the type of phishing emails that you should be looking out for. So there are different types of phishing attacks. The first one is just a general phishing attack, and that's going to go out to a mass market. So it's not that sophisticated. It's probably not even going to be addressed to you. It's just going to say, dear user, we need you to click on this link, or your account's going to be closed down, something like that. We also call that spray and pray in the industry as well. So a lot of that happens, and generally they're pretty easy to detect. But then the next one we're going to look at is spear phishing, because spear phishing is just that little bit more targeted. Okay, so a cyber criminal makes it their job, okay, to be good at targeting people and to obtain data or financial reward. So they're going to be using every tool in their arsenal. They're going to look at your company website. They're going to look at social media. They're going to find information about the people that work within your organisation and the things that are happening there as well. So I'm going to give you an example of a spear phishing attack. A cyber criminal goes onto the company website. They look at vacancies. They see that an accounting role has just become available, and they also see the name and the email address of the HR manager for applying for the job. So they send an email in, actually posing as somebody that's applying for the position as accounts person, and they add an attachment to that email as well, which they say is their CV. But of course, it's a malicious attachment. Okay, so that's a spear phishing attack. And then there are attacks that look like they've come from within your organisation. So this looks like it's come from either the CEO of the organisation or a senior member of the management team. Could be the HR manager, could be the finance director, for example. And let me give you a real life example of what would happen here in a CEO fraud case. So I was speaking with an organisation yesterday who have a CEO that works part-time. It's not a very big organisation. So the CEO obviously spends a lot of time off site and will email in when he's at home, which is pretty common. So when a member of staff received an email from the CEO saying that he'd found a promotion online for gift cards, and he wanted to be able to hand out gift cards for employee rewards, and asked that member of staff to use the company credit card to go onto a link and actually purchase a number of these gift cards, the member of staff thought it was real. Now, after they'd received an email, they also received a WhatsApp message on their mobile phone. Again, looked like it was from the CEO of the organisation, also encouraging that member of staff to click on a link and say, this is just a reminder, I have already emailed you, but we really need to purchase these gift cards because there's a promotion on, and the promotion actually is going to end at midnight tonight. Fortunately, the member of staff within this organisation stepped back for a second, went to their manager and asked whether it was actually a real email. And the manager contacted the CEO, and lo and behold, it actually was a phishing email and a phishing WhatsApp message as well. So that's an example of CEO fraud. The next attack that we see very regularly, and actually it's the same attack that unfortunately Royal Mail was subject to earlier this year, ransomware attacks. Okay, so that's where a victim is able to get into the system, your IT system or your network, and they encrypt or they lock down all of your systems. So if you imagine you go to work, you can't access your CRM system, your accounting system, your emails or anything else. The company then will rely so much on technology these days that we can't run our businesses without technology. Most organisations will have a backup in place of all their information, or they'll use a technology provider such as GHM that will help manage these types of things as well. But many organisations unfortunately don't have sufficient backup, which means that they're rendered helpless. And so many companies actually do end up paying that ransom fine that the attacker has asked for them to unblock all of their systems. The next one that's not as well known is voicemail phishing, or vishing, if you will. So this would be where a cyber criminal pretends to be somebody from your bank, for example, and tries to have you share banking information with them. Or they may try to ask you to go onto a website or onto your banking app and transfer some money or do something that you shouldn't be doing. So that's phishing. And then the next type of attack is SMS phishing or smishing. So this is where a cyber criminal will send a message via a text or a WhatsApp message. Now, a very common attack that we're seeing quite a lot of through smishing emails, smishing text messages at the moment, is where people receive a message from an unknown number and it says, "Hi mum, I've lost my phone, my phone's been damaged, so I'm just texting you from my friend's phone. Can you just click this link?" Okay, or can you just go online and do something for me? Okay, so that's one that's quite common at the moment and certainly one to be looking out for. So here's some examples of phishing emails. Okay, so the first one is an email that looks like it's come from the recipient's bank. Okay, but you can see that if you hover over the link within that email, it brings up the destination that the link will actually take you to. And it doesn't actually match the link that's in the email. So if you ever receive an email and there's a link in there, hover over the link, check where the destination takes you. And if it doesn't match, don't click on it. The second email is a phishing email that's from Amazon. Okay, these are pretty common because people use Amazon so much these days. Again, it's not actually addressed to anybody in particular. So this is a mass market email, but this is saying, look, you know, there's been some suspicious activity on your account. What we need you to do is click on a link just to verify that this is you, or we're going to close your account down in 14 days. Okay, so it's adding some urgency here, you know, of course, your account won't be closed in 14 days. You know, if you receive this type of email, what I'd recommend that you do is come away from the email, go onto your Amazon account and check to make sure that everything is as it should be. And the same with your banking as well. If you receive an email from your bank, come away from the email and actually go onto your banking app or contact your bank directly. This third one here is the type of email that you would receive within an organisation, perhaps to the accounts department, and this looks like it's a new invoice from an organisation, so asking the company to pay an invoice, and of course the bank details in here will be for a cyber criminal organisation. So just a few to look out for there. So what can we do now? We know that what a phishing email is, the different types of phishing emails. What can we do to create change within our organisations? Well, I've got a few tips for you that I'd like to share, and as Callum mentioned, we're also going to share these tips with you in an ebook as well at the end of the session for you to take away and use in your organisations. So when you receive an email, the first thing that you should do is check the sender. Okay, is the email address legitimate? Well, if it looks like it's come from within your organisation, you should know what the email addresses look like within your company. So I know that all email addresses within our organisation are set out the same. So just check to see whether there's an extra digit in there, or it's perhaps used somebody's full name when your email address layout will only use their initial, for example. So check the sender, check the email address, and then check the content. Cyber criminals can be quite smart, but then also they can be quite silly as well. So quite often within these phishing emails, there is either spelling or grammatical errors. So check for the content. Urgency is another way that cyber criminals or cyber criminal organisations will have you do things that you shouldn't be doing. Okay, so if you receive an email that says you need to do something in the next hour, or the next 24 hours, or the next week, step back, okay, and double check all the information within that email. Check the link. Like I said to you before, if you hover over a link in an email, you'll be able to see its true destination. If it doesn't match the link that you think you're going to, then don't click it. Check attachments, okay? And if you think an email looks suspicious, close it, okay, and contact either your IT department or your IT provider and let them know that you've received something that looks suspicious. If you're somebody that's looking after the security within your organisation, there's some tips here on how to improve culture. So at Friendly Phishing, we've been working with organisations to improve their culture as regards to phishing for the last 10 years. And these are some of the things that we find have really worked really well for us and with the companies that we work with. So the first thing is engage your employees, let them know why you're going to be doing what you're doing. So when you start to train employees on how to recognise a phishing email, that's going to help them at work, but it's also going to help them at home as well, because they're going to be able to take that information home, share it with their friends and family, and hopefully be safe online and not have their own email account or their own apps compromised as a result of a phishing email. Take an empathic approach. So this is really important. We're looking to improve the security culture with organisations. So we're not trying to catch people out. We're not trying to trick them. We need to realise that not everybody has a great amount of knowledge when it comes to IT or to phishing. Okay, and so we need to really understand that they're learning something new, and we're taking them on a journey. And then the third thing is to offer engaging and short training courses. There is something called training fatigue that you may or may not have heard of, but actually people have a very short attention span when it comes to training. So if you can offer short, snappy training courses, then you've got more of a chance of that information being absorbed by your employees. We recommend that you train quarterly for best practice. I don't know about anybody that's on the call today, but certainly I can't remember things that I've learned a year ago. Whereas if I'm receiving regular training on a quarterly basis, that means that security is staying front of mind for me, not just the IT department or the person that looks after security within my organisation. We also recommend that you test user knowledge as well. So not just rely on the fact that they must have taken in the information that they were trained on, So what we recommend is sending out fake phishing attacks or simulated phishing attacks within your organisations. We recommend doing that monthly as well. And we would advise that you try and keep these attacks as realistic as possible. So rather than sending the same email to everybody within the organisation, we recommend that you send a different email template to everybody, okay? And that you send those emails at different times as well. We also want to give employees a way to report suspicious looking emails. So make sure that they know that when they receive an email that looks suspicious, don't click on it, don't interact with it, close it down and report either through, the IT department or your IT provider. We also need to find a way to report on engagement with training and phishing tests within organisations as well. So you want to be able to see who's had training deployed, whether they've taken the training, if there's a quiz involved in the training course, whether they've passed or failed the quiz. And also with these phishing tests, these fake phishing tests that go out as well, we want to be able to report on who has received a phishing email, who's interacted with it and how they've interacted with it. Have they opened an attachment? Have they clicked a link? Have they entered the password details? This is all really important information because these things are steps towards improving your security culture, because if you can identify who hasn't taken their training or the people that have interacted with phishing emails, that just means that we can provide more support and more training for those people. And then we recommend that you make a bit of a competition, make it a bit fun, the training within the organisation, make it a game. So perhaps if you're sending out training, offer an incentive for the person who gets the top marks for their training, maybe offer a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine for the person that's done, got the highest marks in the training courses. And then the last thing, and the last tip is to add security awareness to your policies and make employees sign to say that they are familiar with your security policy as well. So there are a few things to think about there. And that's all the information really that I have to share with you today on phishing. I'm going to hand back over to Callum now, who can just speak about Q&A.
Excellent. Thank you, Nicola. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
I'm just going to go to, I see there's a couple of different, there's more than a couple in chat and the Q&A. So I'll go to the chat. We've got a couple of questions in here. Question from Neil. What is the best way of avoiding a phishing scam? Software or training of staff, or both?
Both, actually. It's really, really important to have layers of security within your organisation. So I would never ever say, don't use antivirus, don't have a spam filter. Okay, absolutely have those things. Okay, but train staff as well, because like I said, even with the best security, around 15% of phishing emails will still get through to the end user.
Excellent, thank you. Another question here, Martin. How often, may have already been answered or at least recommended, how often would you test staff with phishing simulated attacks?
The best practice, we recommend that you send a fake phishing attack out once a month.
Okay, just going to pop over to the other area. It says a handful of questions here, just mindful of the time. We've got a good 4 or 5 minutes left, so let's get cracking. Question here, I can't address who it is because it's anonymous. Can you send training to individual departments, or is it one size fits all? Good question.
That's a really good question, yeah, because actually different departments are going to probably receive different types of phishing threats. With friendly phishing, absolutely, you can choose to send training to certain departments or groups of people. So, for example, we have training courses that are specifically for HR or finance or C-level people. Yeah, absolutely, you can send training on phishing just to certain departments, or you can choose to send it to everybody.
Okay, great. How do you add users if training has already taken place?
I'm guessing with that question you mean if a new person joins the organisation. Well, if that's the question, if a new person joins the organisation, they will automatically be enrolled on our platform, because we use what we call an Active Directory sync, which means that our platform is connected with the company's Active Directory. So when a new person joins the organisation, within 24 hours, they will receive all the onboarding training that their colleagues have received in previous months.
Okay. Neat. Okay. It's all on training. This is excellent. How long are your training courses?
Good question. So just going back to what I said before about training fatigue, they're short and snappy. So they're all between 2 and 15 minutes in length.
Okay, we've got time for a couple more, and there's 2 or 3 more. So I'll do my best here. This is anonymous again. Can the solution be used to support our cyber insurance and cyber essentials? Strong question.
That's a really good question, because part of a cyber essentials accreditation and part of cyber insurance, part of the criteria are that you train your employees on how to recognise phishing emails. So absolutely, yeah, it's absolutely something that can be part of that.
Okay. Final question here from Joe.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of the CEO fraud emails. What's the most common type of attack for smaller companies? Ooh.
The most common types of attacks for smaller companies are the mass market emails, really. So the ones that are quite generic. And then I would say that CEO fraud probably is the second most common after that. Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all good questions, to be fair.
Yeah.
There's no others that have filtered through there. I'll just pop back to the chat real quick. No, that's everything. If there's any final questions, get it over right now. But I think that concludes all of the questions, Nicola. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Callum, if anybody does have any questions that they think of when they come off the call or later today, to perhaps email them through to you, Callum, and we can respond individually.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. It's there. Should still be on the screen in front. So, as I said earlier, we follow this webinar up with a free ebook with lots of useful tips. And as Nicola just said there, if there's any questions positioned towards me or in turn to Nicola, then please get them over in the email or my telephone numbers there also. If anybody technical, or if there's anybody that wants to take more of a deeper dive, then we're very happy to set up a demo.
Yes.
And I think we've completed it in time, which is excellent. 8:59. People saying thank you, Joe, and thank you to everybody who's attended. I know it was an early one.
Thank you.
You can go and get your breakfast and grab your coffee now. Thank you all so much for your time, and thank you again, Nicola. It was excellent.
Thank you, Callum, and thanks everyone for joining. Have a good day.
You too. Bye bye now.